The whispers started small, like smoke curling from a secret fire, but by the time the first rumor hit Instagram, the story had already spiraled into something much darker. Word on the street is that Kirk Frost, yes, the same Kirk who built his reputation on loyalty, hustle, and family values, has been quietly negotiating a multi-million-dollar Netflix deal without telling Rasheeda. And here's where it gets messy. Jasmine Washington, the woman who nearly tore Kirk and Rasheeda's marriage apart years ago, is allegedly part of it. Not as a side player, not as a random consultant, but as a secret producer. Fans are calling it the most shocking twist in love and hip-hop history. And insiders say Rasheeda's reaction was nothing short of explosive. According to multiple close sources, the Netflix deal was meant to follow the Frost family's rise from scandal to success, showcasing their brand, businesses, and family life. But somewhere along the line, the script took a turn. Jasmine was quietly brought into the project under a production alias, and no one, least of all Rasheeda, knew about it. The betrayal hit her like a freight train. Imagine discovering that the woman who once claimed to have your husband's child is now tied to his biggest professional opportunity. It's the kind of emotional collision that money can't fix. When the story first leaked, fans flooded social media. Comments ranged from disbelief to outrage. "Rasheeda deserves better," one fan tweeted. "Netflix better explain themselves," said another. And yet, what caught everyone off guard was Kirk's silence. 4 days, he posted nothing, no denials, no clarifications. The silence felt heavy, deliberate, as if he was waiting for the right moment to spin the story. Meanwhile, Rasheeda's cryptic posts black-and-white photos, Bible verses about betrayal, and one chilling caption that read "God reveals in silence," only fueled speculation. Behind the scenes, production insiders claim chaos erupted. Meetings were canceled. Lawyers got involved. Someone allegedly leaked footage from the early pitch sessions, showing Kirk praising Jasmine's creative input and calling her a natural storyteller. That one clip broke the internet. Fans were livid. How could Kirk say that about the same woman who once shattered his marriage? And more importantly, how could Jasmine walk back into that circle knowing the emotional wreckage she left behind? Now, insiders are saying the deal is hanging by a thread. Netflix executives are nervous. Rasheeda is furious. And Kirk, he's caught in the middle of a storm he may not be able to calm. The man who once preached family unity is now being painted as the mastermind behind one of reality TV's dirtiest betrayals. As for Jasmine, she's suddenly everywhere smiling for the cameras, dropping hints about redemption arcs and second chances. But the question everyone's asking tonight is simple. Was this just business, or was it personal? Did Kirk really believe he could keep Rasheeda in the dark while giving Jasmine a secret role behind the scenes? Because if the rumors are true, this isn't just a Netflix deal, it's the beginning of a new feud that could rewrite the Frost family story forever. Rumors have a way of crawling into the light, no matter how carefully people try to bury them. Kirk thought he could keep it clean, quiet, professional, nothing personal. But nothing about his past ever stays quiet. The truth always finds the microphone. The story started at a dimly lit studio meeting in Atlanta, a supposed private session to discuss early production concepts for what Netflix was calling a Southern Empire docuseries. Kirk was there, calm and confident, pitching his vision to a room full of executives who wanted real, raw, emotional television. What he didn't expect, or maybe what he did expect, deep down, was Jasmine Washington walking into that same room like a ghost from another life. The moment she stepped in, the air shifted. Everyone in that room could feel it. Jasmine, in her sleek black dress and quiet smile, carried the kind of energy that unsettles people who know too much about her. Kirk greeted her with that awkward mix of surprise and forced ease, a handshake that lingered too long, a glance that said everything words couldn't. "This is unexpected," he murmured under his breath, but Jasmine only smiled. "Nothing's unexpected in this business, Kirk." And that's where it began, the collaboration no one saw coming. By the end of that meeting, Jasmine had pitched an idea so sharp, so controversial, that Netflix executives couldn't look away. She wanted to highlight the real side of Atlanta's power couples, the betrayals, the rebuilding, the cost of loyalty. Ironically, it was the very story Kirk and Rasheeda had already lived. In the weeks that followed, Kirk and Jasmine exchanged late-night calls, production notes, and confidential drafts. She was listed under an alias, J. Winters, but those who knew her voice caught on quick. "Isn't that Jasmine?" one assistant asked quietly during a conference call. Kirk brushed it off, saying it was a freelancer helping with script flow. But the whispers spread. Insiders say Jasmine wasn't just helping behind the scenes, she was writing entire narrative arcs, shaping Rasheeda's story from the outside, twisting it into something cinematic. The irony was heavy. The woman once accused of destroying Kirk's marriage was now scripting the image of that same marriage for Netflix. Rasheeda, meanwhile, had no clue. She was busy running her boutiques, filming small promos, and preparing to launch her new skincare line. She thought the Netflix deal was just a harmless documentary about entrepreneurship and family legacy. But when Jasmine's name accidentally appeared in a chain email, everything began to unravel. The message was simple: sending Jasmine the footage for revision, her perspective adds depth. Rasheeda froze. Jasmine, what footage? What perspective? She didn't even respond. She just sat there staring at the screen, her pulse pounding, the words burning into her mind. Later that night, she confronted Kirk. What's this about, Jasmine? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Kirk looked up from his phone, confused at first, then cautious. It's nothing like that, he said quickly. She's just helping on the creative side. Netflix wanted a female perspective. That's all. Rasheeda's eyes narrowed. A female perspective? You mean the same woman who tried to ruin my family? Kirk sighed, rubbing his temples. It's not like that. She's not even on camera. But Rasheeda wasn't buying it. The trust they had rebuilt over years began to crumble in seconds. By the next morning, Atlanta's entertainment blogs had picked up the tension. Trouble brewing in Frost Paradise? One headline teased. The comments were vicious. Fans divided instantly. Some blamed Kirk. Others thought Rasheeda was overreacting. Business is business. One fan wrote, she needs to let it go. But others defended her. No woman should have to see her past pain turned into profit. Another said. Emotions ran high online and behind closed doors. Kirk tried to control the narrative, but every move he made only made it worse. Things took another sharp turn when Jasmine posted a vague Instagram story that said, "Redemption looks good on me." No names, no tags, but everyone knew who she was talking about. The timing was perfect or disastrous, depending on who you ask. Within hours, her comments filled with fire emojis and cryptic messages, like "We see you, girl, and they can't erase the truth forever." Kirk texted her to take it down. She replied, "You can't hide a story that's already written." That one line sent Kirk into silence. Meanwhile, Netflix began pressuring him to keep the partnership intact. Jasmine's creative angle was testing high in previews, and executives didn't want to lose her. They told Kirk bluntly, if she walks, the deal walks. Torn between saving his marriage and saving his biggest project yet, Kirk made a choice that would come back to haunt him. He agreed to keep Jasmine on board under stricter confidentiality. He thought he could manage the fallout later. Rasheeda, however, wasn't done. She quietly reached out to one of her friends in production, someone she trusted, to give her the truth. What she learned changed everything. Jasmine wasn't just consulting, she had full editorial control over several key scenes, including one where Kirk discussed the pain and growth of his past mistakes. Jasmine had written his dialogue. It was her words, her phrasing, her emotional tone. It made Kirk look reflective, even heroic. But to Rasheeda, it felt manipulative, like Jasmine was rewriting history to soften her own role in it. When Rasheeda confronted Kirk again, it wasn't calm this time. "You're letting her write our story," she said, her voice breaking. "The same woman who destroyed our trust." Kirk tried to explain that it was just television, that nothing was real in that world. But Rasheeda wasn't listening anymore. "You sold our pain for a check," she said quietly. And that silence that followed was heavier than any argument they'd ever had. 4 days, Kirk avoided the house. He stayed at the studio, claiming work was piling up. Rasheeda posted photos with her kids, smiling through the storm, but fans noticed the missing ring. "Trouble," one follower commented. She didn't reply. But one night, in a moment of raw emotion, she posted a video from her car. "Sometimes people think healing means pretending it never happened," she said. "But healing means remembering. Walking away if you have to." The video went viral overnight. Everyone knew it was about Kirk. Netflix executives panicked. The drama was good for ratings, but bad for the brand. They urged Kirk to fix it before it got out of control. Jasmine, however, saw opportunity. She told a reporter off the record, "This is real life, not scripted. That's what makes it powerful." Her comment leaked, sparking outrage. Rasheeda's fans flooded her page with support. #StandWithRasheeda began trending. But Kirk wasn't ready to give up. He called Jasmine late one night, his voice tense. "You need to stop adding fuel to this fire," he said. Jasmine's tone was cool, almost detached. "I'm not adding fuel, I'm telling the truth. If Rasheeda can't handle honesty, that's on her." Kirk's patience snapped. "You're playing with people's lives, Jasmine. She laughed softly. No, Kirk. I'm just producing good television. And in that one line, Kirk realized the scale of what he had unleashed. This wasn't just a creative partnership. It was a trap. Perfectly laid. Jasmine had used his ambition, his desperation to prove himself, and turned it into leverage. Every decision he made now belonged to her narrative. Every word he spoke could be edited, reshaped, and broadcast to millions. And somewhere deep inside, he knew it was too late to undo it. While Kirk scrambled to repair the damage, Rasheeda started plotting her next move. She wasn't going to be the victim again. She contacted her own lawyers, her own media team, and began drafting a counter-narrative. If Kirk and Jasmine wanted to tell a story, she'd tell hers louder. But before she could release anything, Netflix dropped a bombshell announcement. The Frost family documentary now, titled Love, Lies and Loyalty, was officially greenlit for release. The trailer was already cut, and to everyone's shock, Jasmine's name appeared in the credits. The betrayal was public now, undeniable, irreversible, and the world was about to watch the fallout unfold in real time. The night that trailer dropped, Atlanta felt like it stopped breathing. Within minutes, every gossip page, blog, and fan account had reposted it. Clips of Kirk and Rasheeda flashed between dramatic voiceovers, old footage, and a haunting piano track that made it all feel like the beginning of a tragedy. But the part that hit hardest came near the end, when Jasmine's name rolled in the credits under creative director. Fans froze the screen, zoomed in, circled it, and flooded the internet with disbelief. Nah, this can't be real. One user wrote. Another commented, Kirk must have lost his mind. The backlash was instant and brutal. Hashtags like #betrayal on the big screen and #justice for Rasheeda started trending within the hour. Rasheeda watched it alone, sitting on the edge of her bed. The light from the screen flickered across her face, and every frame felt like a slap. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat still, letting the shock settle into something colder. She grabbed her phone and typed out a message to Kirk. You let her win. Then she turned it off and walked out. Kirk, meanwhile, was at the studio watching the numbers climb millions of views in less than 3 hours. Netflix executives were thrilled, calling it unprecedented engagement. But Kirk wasn't smiling. He could feel the walls closing in. By morning, paparazzi were parked outside their house. Producers from other networks started calling Rasheeda for exclusive interviews. People want your side, they said. Tell your truth. But she stayed quiet. For the first time in years, Rasheeda didn't rush to defend herself. Silence became her weapon. Kirk tried to reach her, but every call went unanswered. When he finally showed up at home, she was gone. No note, no trace. Just a half-empty closet and the faint smell of her perfume. He tried to tell himself it was temporary, that she needed space. But when Jasmine posted a behind-the-scenes photo captioned "When hard work finally pays off," all hell broke loose again. Fans flooded her page with venom. You built your career on someone else's pain, one wrote. Jasmine didn't delete a single comment. She just replied to one, pain is part of art. That line went viral, igniting another wave of outrage. Backstage, Netflix publicists scrambled to control the damage. They issued statements about creative collaboration and respecting all parties involved, but no one was buying it. Even castmates from Love and Hip Hop started weighing in. Carly Red posted a cryptic story. I told y'all years ago this wasn't over. Mimi Faust commented under a blog post, people play nice until cameras roll. The entire Atlanta scene was buzzing with speculation. One evening, Kirk finally decided to confront Jasmine in person. He drove to the production office where she was reviewing edits. She looked up from her laptop, unfazed. You shouldn't be here, she said calmly. We need to talk, he replied. She crossed her arms. About what? The show's locked, Kirk, it's done. His tone darkened. You know what you did. You turned my life into your redemption story. Jasmine's lips curved slightly. I didn't do anything you didn't allow. You opened that door, remember? He stepped closer, his voice low. You think you can win by destroying me? She stared straight at him. No, Kirk. I already did. The conversation leaked later, thanks to someone recording through the office window. The audio spread across social media like wildfire. Fans dissected every word, every pause, every breath. People started calling Jasmine Atlanta's villain, while others began defending her, saying she was just taking control of her narrative. Why should she stay silent forever? One blogger argued. Maybe this is her revenge arc. Meanwhile, Rasheeda reappeared calm, composed, and colder than ever. She posted a short video clip with no caption, just her sitting in a car listening to Beyoncé's Sorry. Within hours, it hit 1 million views. Fans took it as a statement. Even major outlets began covering the saga like it was breaking news. One entertainment site ran the headline, "Rasheeda Frost breaks silence with icy response to Netflix betrayal." Behind the scenes, Kirk's world was unraveling. Business partners started distancing themselves. Sponsors paused deals. Frost Bistro saw a dip in foot traffic as fans called for boycotts. "We can't support betrayal," one commenter wrote under their restaurant's post. Kirk tried to release a statement through his publicist, but it backfired. People accused him of damage control, not remorse. Every move he made seemed to dig the hole deeper. Netflix, on the other hand, saw record engagement. The documentary trailer had become a cultural flashpoint. They decided to push the release date forward. Kirk begged them to delay it, arguing that the family needed time, but Jasmine reportedly convinced executives otherwise. "People want truth when it's raw," she said in an internal meeting. "If we wait, the emotion dies." And so, the premiere date was set 3 weeks earlier than planned. Rasheeda found out from social media. The post read, "Love, Lies and Loyalty premieres this Friday." She didn't say a word publicly, but her inner circle says she was livid. That night, she called Kirk for the first time in days. "You could have stopped this," she said quietly. "You still can." Kirk's voice trembled. "If I pull out now, they'll sue me for breach of contract." "It's not that simple." She paused. "It's always simple when you love somebody." And then she hung up. On the day of the premiere, Atlanta felt tense. Cameras flashed outside the event venue, fans crowded around, and reporters yelled questions. Jasmine arrived first, glowing in a red gown, smiling like she'd already won. Kirk followed, expression tight, his suit immaculate but his eyes empty. People asked where Rasheeda was, but no one had seen her. When the screening began, the audience gasped at the opening montage grainy clips of Kirk and Jasmine from years ago. Their scandal revisited with emotional narration. Jasmine's voice could be heard softly in the background, saying, "Sometimes love stories don't end, they evolve." By the time the credits rolled, the crowd was silent. No one clapped. Kirk slipped out before the lights came on. Jasmine stayed for interviews, telling reporters, "It's time to stop pretending the past didn't happen." The next morning, the internet exploded again. Clips flooded TikTok, and the phrase she said, "It's time," became a viral sound. Everyone had an opinion, but the one person who stayed completely silent was Rasheeda. She disappeared again, only to re-emerge a week later on talk radio, her voice calm but steady. "People think they can narrate your pain for you," she said. "But sometimes, silence is louder than revenge." The host asked if she had watched the Netflix series. Rasheeda paused before answering, "No. I lived it once. I don't need to live it again." Her grace won the public back instantly. Hashtags flipped from hashtag justice for Rasheeda to hashtag Rasheeda wins. Her brands began trending again. Fans called her a queen for surviving chaos. Even celebrities outside Atlanta started commenting, praising her composure. But Kirk knew the war wasn't over. Jasmine had hinted at a second season. Netflix wanted it. Fans demanded it. And this time, they wanted all three of them, Kirk, Rasheeda, and Jasmine, on screen together. Kirk dreaded the idea. But deep down, he knew Hollywood never lets a scandal die quietly. What began as a creative deal had turned into a circus of betrayal, power, and pride. And Kirk Frost was standing right at the center, with cameras still rolling. The morning after the premiere chaos, Kirk woke up to 100 missed calls and a flood of messages. Some were from Netflix executives, some from journalists, and a few from old friends who didn't even bother hiding their judgment. The one message he kept opening, over and over again, was the one from Rasheeda, just a single sentence she had sent hours earlier. "You don't even realize what you've lost yet." It felt like a curse, and it lingered in his chest like something heavy he couldn't cough out. He scrolled through social media, hoping to find a distraction, but every post, every meme, every headline had his name on it. The internet had turned his mistake into a global conversation. Netflix's official page proudly boasted record-breaking viewership, while gossip blogs picked apart every frame, analyzing his tone, his expressions, his pauses. Fans weren't watching for entertainment anymore, they were watching for blood. Kirk decided to go dark for a few days, shutting down his phone, avoiding everyone, but silence didn't fix anything. When he finally stepped back into the studio, he found Jasmine already there, smiling like nothing had happened. "You disappeared," she said casually, sipping her coffee. He glared at her. "You made me the villain," he said. Jasmine tilted her head. No, Kirk. I made you human. People love that. He clenched his jaw. You ruined my marriage. Again. Her eyes softened for a brief second before turning cold. You ruined it the first time. I just gave the world the rerun. The words hit hard, not because they were cruel, but because they were true in ways Kirk couldn't deny. Rumor had it that Netflix wanted to expand the project into a multi-season franchise. Executives were thrilled by the chaos. The numbers were climbing daily. The more people argued, the more they streamed. Kirk tried to negotiate changes, to minimize Jasmine's control, but she had the leverage now. Her creative contract gave her veto power over edits, and every move Kirk made had to pass through her hands first. One insider claimed Jasmine had even started pushing for more scenes that painted her in a sympathetic light. Audiences love a comeback, she told the team. Give them someone to root for. And slowly, the villain narrative began to shift. People started to see Jasmine as misunderstood, a woman trying to reclaim her story. Rasheeda, on the other hand, was reclaiming her peace in silence. She had moved into a separate condo downtown and surrounded herself with friends who kept her grounded. She refused all interview offers and ignored every paparazzi question. But the public's curiosity only grew stronger. Fan accounts dedicated to her popped up overnight, tracking her every appearance, praising her resilience. When she appeared at an event wearing all white, social media dubbed her the Phoenix. And though she stayed composed, those closest to her said she still checked Kirk's page late at night, just to see if he would finally say something real. Things took another sharp turn when an anonymous source leaked a behind-the-scenes clip from the Netflix production. In the footage, Jasmine could be heard telling producers, Rasheeda was never the problem. She was just the obstacle. The internet erupted again. Even people who had started sympathizing with Jasmine turned on her. Obstacle. She's a wife, not a prop, one fan commented. Hashtags like #team, RASHEEDA, and #canceled started trending again. Kirk saw the clip too, and for the first time, he called Netflix directly, demanding they take action. But the response he got made his stomach twist. Kirk, the executive said bluntly, controversy is content, and content is currency. Let it breathe. The next week, Jasmine decided to do a live Q&A on Instagram. More than 200,000 people tuned in, hoping for an apology or at least an explanation. Instead, Jasmine leaned back in her chair and said, people love to play saint and sinner, but life's not that simple. I didn't steal anyone's husband. I told a story. If you're mad, maybe you see too much of yourself in it. The comments exploded instantly. Girl, you have no remorse, one viewer wrote. Another said, you just made everything worse. Jasmine smiled through the chaos, unbothered, almost enjoying the backlash. Every clip from that live went viral within minutes. Meanwhile, Kirk showed up at Frost Bistro for the first time in weeks. The staff greeted him politely but with visible discomfort. Some customers whispered. Others took photos discreetly. When he sat down at a corner table, his old friend and business partner Tony walked over. Man, you need to fix this, Tony said quietly. You're losing everything over one deal, Kirk sighed, staring at his untouched coffee. It's already gone too far. I can't control it anymore. Tony leaned closer. You better start trying, or Netflix won't be the only thing gone. Rasheeda's not coming back if this keeps up. Kirk nodded, but deep down, he wasn't sure he could undo the damage. Later that night, he decided to drive to Rasheeda's condo. He didn't call first. When she opened the door, the look on her face said everything. She wasn't surprised to see him. But she wasn't happy either. What do you want? She asked. To talk, he said. She folded her arms. Talking doesn't change what you did. He stepped inside anyway. I never meant for it to go this far. I just wanted to build something real. They brought her in without telling me. Rasheeda cut him off. Stop lying. I saw the contracts. Kirk. Her signature's right next to yours. He exhaled, defeated. I messed up. I thought I could separate business from personal. I thought we were strong enough. Rasheeda looked at him for a long moment before saying, strength isn't about surviving betrayal twice. Then she turned away, leaving him standing alone in the doorway. The next morning, gossip blogs published exclusive photos of Kirk leaving Rasheeda's building looking exhausted. The headlines were merciless. Kirk begs Rasheeda for forgiveness after Netflix betrayal. Fans flooded her comments with hearts and words of encouragement, calling her the Queen of Grace. Jasmine's name, however, became a trending topic again, this time attached to a new rumor. Sources claimed she had secretly met with a Netflix exec to pitch a spin-off series centered around her own life, titled Redemption in Atlanta. When the story broke, Jasmine posted a single emoji on her Instagram story, a red heart, and nothing else. It was enough to ignite another media storm. Kirk's team urged him to stay quiet, but his silence was now hurting him. Netflix was capitalizing on the noise while his personal brand burned. Finally, in an act of desperation, he sat down for an interview. The host didn't hold back. "Did you betray Rasheeda?" Kirk hesitated before answering. "I betrayed her trust, not her love. I thought I was building something for both of us, but I see now I built it on the wrong foundation." The clip went viral within hours, and though some fans appreciated his honesty, most weren't convinced. "Too little, too late," one comment read. By now, the situation had evolved into something larger than a relationship scandal. It had become a full-blown cultural phenomenon. Think pieces appeared everywhere, dissecting what the saga said about loyalty, power, and forgiveness in modern fame. Talk shows debated whether Kirk deserved a second chance, or if Rasheeda should cut him off for good. Jasmine, ever the strategist, leaned into the chaos. She released a new photo shoot, styled like an old Hollywood star, with a caption that read, "Misunderstood doesn't mean mistaken." The internet split again, half mocking her, half praising her confidence. Behind closed doors, Netflix executives met to discuss the future of the franchise. They wanted to film a reunion special, something raw and unpredictable. "Get them all in a room," one exec said. "The tension will do the work." Kirk initially refused, but Jasmine agreed instantly, saying, "Let's finish what we started." Producers knew they had their hook. The reunion was set, and invites were sent to Kirk and Rasheeda. Rasheeda hesitated at first but eventually said yes, not for Kirk, not for Netflix, but for herself. "I want to look her in the eye," she told her friend, "one last time." And so, the stage was set for what insiders called the most explosive reality confrontation ever filmed. No one knew what would happen. But everyone knew one thing: the cameras would capture every second, every breath, every truth that had been buried under months of betrayal. Kirk didn't sleep the night before the taping. He knew this wasn't just a reunion. It was Judgment Day. As the night pressed on, and the lights of the city blurred into streaks of gold and white, the air around them grew heavy with tension and revelation. The truth was no longer hiding in shadows. It was standing right before everyone, unfiltered and impossible to ignore. People who once whispered in secrecy were now watching with wide eyes, realizing the empire they thought was untouchable was built on silence, manipulation, and fear. The air felt electric as confessions began to surface, one after another, shaking the foundation of every loyal follower and ally who had once sworn never to doubt their idols. A storm of emotion flooded the room: anger, regret, disbelief, and, yet somewhere in the chaos, there was a strange sense of liberation. The masks had fallen, the illusions were gone, and what remained was raw, imperfect humanity struggling to reclaim its voice. No one wanted to be the first to speak, but the silence was louder than any truth that could be spoken. And then, as if on cue, the whispers returned, echoing through the room with trembling intensity. "Did you know all along?" The question hung in the air like a blade. It cut through loyalty and exposed what everyone had secretly feared, that the truth had been there from the very beginning, hidden in plain sight, while everyone pretended not to see it. Somewhere in the back corner, one of the insiders looked down, guilt creeping across his face. He had been there for every deal, every secret exchange, every coded conversation meant to protect reputations. But tonight, protection meant complicity, and complicity meant ruin. The weight of his silence had grown unbearable, and for the first time, he felt what it was like to be hunted not by others, but by his own conscience. The tension snapped when a sudden shout pierced the air: someone demanding answers. Someone who had been betrayed the most. The confrontation ignited chaos, and all those years of loyalty and denial came crashing down like glass. It wasn't about fame anymore. It wasn't about power. It was about survival. The camera flashes outside caught the broken pieces of people's lives scattering like confetti. The headlines were already being written, stories twisting faster than the truth could breathe. And yet, amidst the madness, a new realization took shape. Those who had spent years fighting for visibility, for control, were now stripped bare, facing the one thing no amount of money could buy: peace of mind. Some tried to escape through the side doors, hoping to outrun the noise, but the noise had already found them. It was in every phone, every post, every stare. They had become the story they once controlled, and still, The one person everyone waited to see hadn't arrived yet. Rumors swirled. Had they fled? Were they plotting a comeback? Or were they simply watching, calculating their next move from the shadows? Because in this world, disappearance wasn't retreat, it was strategy. People leaned closer, searching for answers in each other's faces, but all they found was fear, disguised as defiance. Time felt slower now. Every sound, every flash of light felt magnified. Even breathing seemed too loud, as if the air itself didn't want to draw attention. Someone whispered that a statement was coming, that everything would be cleared, but deep down, no one believed it. The truth was already out, and no crafted statement could rewind it. The empire wasn't just crumbling, it was collapsing under the weight of its own secrets. And then the doors opened, the crowd froze, cameras clicked in perfect rhythm, capturing the figure that finally stepped in, calm and unreadable. No one knew whether to applaud or to tremble. Every step echoed with power reclaimed and danger reborn. The silence broke, as the voice everyone had been waiting for filled the room, steady, commanding, and drenched in both defiance and exhaustion. "You think you know the story," the voice said, pausing just long enough for the words to sting. "But you've only seen what I allowed you to see." Gasps rippled through the crowd. That single sentence changed the temperature of the room. It wasn't confession, it was control. A reminder that even when exposed, some people never truly lose power. They just changed the battlefield. Phones lifted, recording every second, capturing what would become tomorrow's viral storm. But beneath the flashing lights and the polished words, something darker stirred. It was the realization that every truth told tonight was only a fraction of what lay buried. The real story hadn't even begun. As the cameras kept rolling, the air thickened with unspoken threats and unhealed wounds. Alliances formed and shattered within seconds. And through it all, one unshakable truth emerged. In a world built on illusion, survival doesn't belong to the innocent. It belongs to those who know how to play the game and never let anyone see them bleed. The crowd began to thin, but the story refused to end. Outside, flashing lights painted the streets in waves of blue and white, while murmurs turned into debates. And debates turned into headlines. Everyone was desperate to interpret what had just unfolded inside those walls. Some called it courage, others called it madness. The ones who had always benefited from silence were now panicking, rushing to clean their tracks before the truth connected every missing piece. But it was too late. The evidence wasn't just in the hands of journalists or insiders. It was everywhere. It lived in screenshots, old recordings, and voices that had been waiting years for their turn to speak. The illusion of control had dissolved, leaving only vulnerability exposed in its purest form. In the chaos, one figure stood apart, watching it all unravel with quiet clarity. The one who had been dismissed, silenced, underestimated. They had seen it coming long before anyone else did. For years they had warned that secrets have expiration dates, that the higher you build your empire on deception, the harder it collapses. And now, watching the downfall unfold, they felt no joy, only an eerie calm that comes when truth finally catches up to lies. Messages started pouring in, people begging for forgiveness, trying to rewrite history in real time. But redemption wasn't available through apology. It required exposure, accountability, and the kind of honesty no one in that world had ever practiced. The internet erupted with speculation, theories spinning faster than facts. Every frame, every quote, every look exchanged inside that room was dissected like sacred text. And amidst that noise, a single leaked recording began circulating. It was grainy, distant, but the voice was unmistakable. It was the same voice that had stood before the cameras hours earlier, confident, composed, dangerous. "They think they've won," the voice said in the recording, low and steady. "But they still don't understand what I've built. This isn't destruction, it's transformation." Within minutes, the clip had gone viral. Some called it proof of manipulation, others saw it as genius. But what no one could deny was that the narrative had shifted again. The same person who had been cornered now controlled the chaos once more. What had seemed like exposure was now strategy. And the more people tried to cancel, the more powerful the legend grew. Inside the luxury suite overlooking the city, that same figure sat alone now, the noise fading to a distant hum. The phone buzzed endlessly, calls from managers, journalists, old friends pretending to care. But none of it mattered. What mattered was the next move. Redemption was irrelevant. Survival was everything. They poured a drink, staring at the skyline, their reflection merging with the glass. "They'll never stop watching," they whispered, almost smiling. "So I'll give them something worth watching." The plan was already taking shape. An exclusive interview, a carefully timed documentary, a redemption arc, masked as confession. It wasn't truth that kept people watching, it was performance. And no one performed better. Across town, those who had once stood beside them were already crafting their own versions of the story, spinning themselves into victims, trying to erase their part in the corruption. But history has a cruel way of remembering. Files were being dug up, receipts resurfacing, hidden accounts being exposed one by one. Every alliance formed out of greed was now turning into betrayal. Those who had smiled together on red carpets were now blocking each other's calls. The empire wasn't just collapsing from the outside, it was rotting from within. Meanwhile, the public couldn't look away. There was something hypnotic about the destruction of power, something almost addictive. The audience didn't want resolution, they wanted continuation, escalation, drama, and that hunger was what the mastermind understood best. As chaos consumed everyone else, they stayed quiet, waiting for the perfect moment to reappear. Not as the villain, not as the victim, but as the survivor. Because in the age of spectacle, survival itself was the ultimate narrative. Somewhere deep in the night, a private jet waited on a dimly lit runway. The engines hummed softly, steady and patient. A small entourage stood nearby, nervous but loyal enough not to ask questions. When the figure finally arrived, dressed in black, sunglasses hiding any trace of exhaustion, they moved like someone untouched by scandal. The door closed behind them, shutting out the noise of the world they had just set on fire. As the jet lifted into the clouds, a single message went live on their official account. It was only 3 words: "Watch me rebuild." Within seconds, it had millions of shares. Everyone wanted to know what that meant. Was it a threat? A promise? A prophecy? No one knew. But everyone, from fans to enemies, understood one thing: the story wasn't over. It was just entering its most dangerous chapter yet. As dawn broke over the city, a strange stillness replaced the chaos. The world was exhausted, but restless. Every eye was still on the same name, every camera waiting for the next spark. And far above it all, somewhere between reinvention and revenge, the person who had started it all closed their eyes and whispered to themselves, "You only lose when they forget you." Hours later, the internet was still burning. Hashtags, reactions, conspiracy threads, everything revolved around Kirk, Rasheeda, and Jasmine. No one had expected the story to twist this far, but it kept unfolding like a script too addictive to turn off. New voices emerged, claiming insider knowledge, each adding another layer of chaos to an already tangled web. Screenshots from supposed Netflix emails began circulating, some showing Jasmine listed as creative consultant, others naming her as associate producer. Every image looked real enough to believe, and that was all the public needed. Truth had become irrelevant. All that mattered was the spectacle. Kirk's phone had been ringing non-stop. Sponsors wanted statements, production teams demanded answers, and every gossip outlet was desperate for an exclusive. He ignored them all. Sitting in his office with the blinds drawn, he scrolled through a feed that now read like his obituary. Kirk betrayed Rasheeda again. Jasmine wins. Netflix deal in flames. His fingers hovered over the screen, then dropped. There was no fixing this with a post. Not this time. Across town, Rasheeda was filming a confessional for her own project. Tears blurred her mascara, but her voice stayed steady. "I've stood by him through everything," she said, staring directly into the lens. "But this cut's different." Her words echoed across social media within minutes. Fans flooded her comments with hearts, support, and outrage. "We got your back, Queen. You deserve peace." The sympathy was instant, but the pain behind her eyes said she wasn't looking for pity, she wanted truth. Jasmine, on the other hand, leaned into the chaos. She posted a single photo, sitting in a director's chair with the caption, "Behind every story, there's another version." It broke the internet again. The audacity, the timing, it was pure provocation. And Kirk knew it. He slammed his phone down and muttered under his breath, "She's playing the game." But what he didn't realize was that Jasmine wasn't just playing, she was winning. According to leaked messages, Jasmine had met with Netflix executives weeks before Kirk's supposed pitch. Her version of the show focused not on the Frost family's redemption but on the truth behind love, power and reputation in Atlanta. And she wanted to tell it all. When producers discovered Kirk had been in talks for a similar concept, they proposed combining both ideas. That's when Jasmine's name was quietly attached to the project without Rasheeda's knowledge. Insiders say Kirk agreed, thinking it would never get out. But Jasmine had recorded everything. "He told me he'd handle Rasheeda," she said in one leaked voicemail. "He said it's just business." Those words hit the internet like lightning. Suddenly Kirk wasn't just a husband in trouble. He was a man caught double-dilling his wife for a TV deal. Fans felt betrayed, but the entertainment industry saw opportunity. Offers poured in for exclusive interviews, tell-alls, and spin-offs. Jasmine was being called the Phoenix of Atlanta by one blog, a manipulative genius by another. She didn't care which title stuck as long as they kept saying her name. Meanwhile, Rasheeda went silent. No posts, no appearances, just absence. And in her absence, the noise grew louder. Paparazzi camped outside her boutique. Reporters called her friends. One even claimed she was meeting with divorce attorneys. Kirk tried to reach her, but every call went to voicemail. "We need to talk," he said in one message. "Please, don't believe everything you see." But she had already seen too much. The final straw came when a clip surfaced from the Netflix pitch meeting itself. Kirk was on camera, smiling as he introduced Jasmine to the room. "We've had our differences," he said in the video, "but she understands the story. She lived it." The room laughed. Jasmine smirked. And Rasheeda watched that clip play on every gossip page in America. Within hours, she packed her bags and left their shared home. By nightfall, bloggers had photos of a moving truck outside the Frost estate. "Rasheeda walks out," blared the headlines. "Marriage over again." But the story wasn't just about a breakup anymore. It had become a study in manipulation, ambition, and how far people will go to control a narrative. Jasmine wasn't just an old scandal resurfacing, she was rewriting her legacy. Kirk wasn't just a husband caught lying, he was a man watching his empire crumble from the inside. And Rasheeda, she was the woman the world was rooting for, even as her heart broke in public. Yet behind the scenes, something strange was happening. A Netflix executive was seen leaving Rasheeda's boutique late one evening. The next day, a new rumor spread that Rasheeda was negotiating her own Deal counter-project that would set the record straight. And if that was true, it meant the Frost family's drama was about to reach an entirely new level of exposure. By the end of the week, the internet had split into factions. Team Rasheeda, Team Jasmine, and those who just wanted to watch it all burn. Every live stream, every podcast, every gossip blog was dissecting the scandal like it was scripture. And through it all, Kirk sat alone, watching his reputation implode, wondering how everything he'd built had turned into ammunition against him. Then, one morning, a package arrived at his office. Number name, no note, just a flash drive. Inside was a rough cut of a documentary. The title card read, "The Frost Files, the story they didn't want told." As Kirk pressed play, his hands shook. The footage opened with Jasmine sitting under studio lights, looking straight into the camera. "I didn't destroy their marriage," she said softly. "I exposed what was already broken." The clip ended with Kirk's own voice from an old interview saying, "You can't build trust on secrets." The irony was almost poetic. Kirk froze, realizing this wasn't the end of the scandal, it was the beginning of something far bigger. Kirk didn't move for nearly an hour. The video kept looping, Jasmine's calm face repeating the same words again and again. He muted the sound, but her lips kept forming the sentence that now haunted him. "I exposed what was already broken." It didn't matter how many times he replayed it, the meaning only grew heavier. She wasn't lying, and that truth stung worse than the betrayal itself. The office felt smaller, quieter, like the walls were closing in. Outside, the noise of the world went on, headlines spinning, fans raging, cameras flashing, but inside, Kirk was staring at the collapse of everything he'd built. Every deal, every brand, every carefully polished image had been ripped apart by the one thing he could never control, the story. Rasheeda, meanwhile, had gone completely off the grid. Friends said she was recharging, but insiders knew she was strategizing. She had been in this position before, hurt, humiliated, underestimated, but this time, she wasn't coming back to forgive. This time, she wanted power. A source close to her said she'd started meeting with producers from rival streaming platforms. They wanted her side of the story, and she was ready to tell it. Not as Kirk's wife or Jasmine's victim, but as her own brand. One of the producers allegedly told her, "You're not the supporting role anymore, you're the story." Rasheeda didn't respond, but the look in her eyes said everything. While she plotted in silence, Kirk's world kept unraveling. His management dropped him. Sponsors suspended deals. Netflix refused to comment publicly, but behind the scenes, lawyers were scrambling to contain the fallout. Jasmine, on the other hand, was thriving. She booked interviews, podcasts, and a surprise appearance on a popular daytime show where she played innocent and confident all at once. "I just want peace," she told the host, blinking slowly. "I never wanted to hurt anyone." The audience clapped, but online, reactions were split. Half the viewers called her manipulative, the other half called her a genius. She knew exactly how to hold both sides at once, villain and victim, snake and survivor. What no one knew yet was that Jasmine had more footage. She'd been documenting everything: texts, calls, meetings, even private conversations. She had built a digital fortress of evidence, and every piece was a potential weapon. Her plan wasn't just revenge, it was legacy. She wanted control over the narrative forever. One insider said, "Jasmine doesn't want to destroy Kirk and Rasheeda, she wants to replace them." And as much as that sounded like an exaggeration, the more the story grew, the more it began to look true. Kirk finally broke his silence one night in a surprise live stream. He sat in his living room, eyes tired, voice low but steady. "I made mistakes," he said, "but I didn't lie about this deal." Jasmine was supposed to be a consultant, nothing more. Netflix twisted it for attention, and the internet ran with it. He paused, staring directly into the camera. "Rasheeda, if you're watching, you know my heart. I built everything for us. I never wanted it to end like this." Within minutes, the comments exploded. "Too little, too late. We've heard this before. Where was this honesty years ago?" Others defended him, saying the media had turned him into a villain. But the damage was already done. The clip went viral, but not for the reasons he hoped. People zoomed in on his expression, dissecting every blink, every pause, turning sincerity into spectacle. Rasheeda saw the video. She didn't cry. She just turned her phone over and said quietly, "He's still trying to control the story." And she wasn't wrong. The next day, she met with a new producer from Hulu who offered her something Netflix couldn't: a clean slate. They proposed a docuseries told entirely from her perspective. The title they pitched was simple: Unfiltered. Rasheeda smiled for the first time in weeks. While her project moved forward, Jasmine launched her own podcast. Episode 1 dropped at midnight and was titled The Man Behind the Lie. She didn't name Kirk directly, but she didn't have to. Her words painted a picture vivid enough to recognize. She spoke about manipulation, gaslighting, and emotional exhaustion, describing scenes that felt too personal to be fictional. "When someone builds an empire on your silence," she said, "your voice becomes the most dangerous thing you own." The podcast hit 1 million plays in 24 hours. Jasmine had found her audience and she was feeding them every drop of drama they craved. Kirk tried to fight back, but every move only made it worse. One of his old business partners leaked financial records showing questionable payments linked to the Netflix deal. Another insider claimed Kirk had promised Jasmine royalties that he never intended to pay. Suddenly, the story wasn't about betrayal, it was about corruption. Journalists started digging deeper, tracing paper trails and contracts. What began as gossip had evolved into a scandal threatening real careers. Kirk's phone calls went unanswered. Even his publicist stopped returning messages. The world he'd once controlled was slipping out of his hands. Rasheeda's silence became her strength. The less she said, the more people sided with her. Fans began flooding her boutique, buying out her products as a sign of solidarity. Hashtags like #StandWith RASHEEDA and #RespectTheQueen trended for days. Every woman who'd ever been betrayed saw a piece of themselves in her. Every man who'd ever been caught lying saw a warning. And Jasmine, still unapologetic, fed that energy like fuel. "If telling the truth makes me the villain," she said on her second podcast episode, "then I'll wear the crown." By then, Netflix had no choice but to respond. In a brief statement, they announced the deal was under review due to unforeseen creative conflicts. But behind closed doors, the company was divided. Some executives believed the controversy could skyrocket viewership. Others feared backlash from Rasheeda's loyal fanbase. They decided to pause production, leaving everyone in limbo. The cast was furious. Producers were panicking. And in the middle of it all, Kirk sat alone, wondering how everything he'd ever loved had turned into a battlefield. One night, after weeks of silence, Rasheeda finally broke her quiet streak with a cryptic Instagram story. It was just a mirror selfie, no caption, only a reflection of strength. Fans noticed the absence of her wedding ring, and within minutes, it became headline news. "Rasheeda officially done with Kirk," screamed one outlet. She didn't confirm or deny it. She didn't need to. Her calm was its own declaration. The next morning, Jasmine appeared on live television again. This time, she brought receipts, literal screenshots, and voice notes. One message allegedly from Kirk read, "This deal will fix everything. She forgive me once the money hits." The studio gasped. The host leaned in, trying to verify. Jasmine just smiled and said, "He thought I'd stay quiet again." That line alone turned into a meme, a slogan, a viral moment etched into pop culture. As the days passed, the scandal stopped being a story and became a saga. Celebrities weighed in, podcasts debated morality, and even reality stars outside Atlanta started posting reactions. Kirk was cornered, desperate. One night he showed up unannounced at Rasheeda's new filming location. Security tried to block him, but she agreed to see him for 5 minutes. The cameras were rolling. He looked broken, older somehow. "I messed up," he said softly. "I was trying to protect us." She looked at him for a long time, her silence louder than any words. Then she said, "You protect what you respect. You lied because you couldn't face what you destroyed." He reached for her hand, but she stepped back. "This isn't love anymore," she said. "This is damage." The clip leaked within hours, spreading faster than anything before it. Millions watched, replayed, analyzed every second. For the first time, both of them looked human, two people who had built an empire out of appearances, finally stripped of their armor. And yet, even that vulnerability became content. People made edits, soundtracks, reaction videos. Heartbreak was entertainment now, and no one could escape it. Behind the chaos, Jasmine was preparing something bigger. Sources said she had signed a book deal titled Second Act: How I Turned Scandal into Success. The timing was perfect. Kirk's reputation was collapsing, Rasheeda's star was rising, and Jasmine was cementing herself as the puppet master who had orchestrated it all. But deep down, she wasn't satisfied. Every victory felt hollow. Every headline reminded her that she was still defined by the same story she'd tried to escape. She stared at her reflection one night, whispering, "How do you win when your name only means drama?" But before she could find an answer, her phone buzzed with a new notification. Netflix had officially canceled the Frost project. The world exploded again. Blogs declared Jasmine's career over. Trolls flooded her page. Her sponsors backed out. For the first time, she felt the silence she had once craved on it terrified her. Meanwhile, Rasheeda's new show Unfiltered was greenlit. The announcement dropped with a teaser trailer showing her walking through an empty stage, saying, "This time, I tell it my way." Fans erupted. It was poetic justice. Jasmine watched it alone, no expression, just a faint nod. Kirk watched it too, but unlike Jasmine, he smiled. Not out of pride, but out of acceptance. "She deserves that," he whispered. As weeks passed, life began to settle, but the scars stayed. Jasmine disappeared from social media. Kirk focused on rebuilding his business quietly. Rasheeda's show premiered to record-breaking views, praised for its honesty and emotion. The first episode ended with her saying, "You can survive betrayal, but only if you stop needing closure." It was clear she'd moved on not with bitterness, but with clarity. Still, there were whispers. Rumors that Jasmine had started working overseas. Rumors that Kirk had been seen visiting her again. Rumors that a second Netflix project might secretly be in development. But no one knew for sure. The truth had become irrelevant long ago. All that mattered now was the story, and as long as people kept watching, someone would keep writing it. The night of the premiere changed everything again. Outside the theater, fans screamed Rasheeda's name, while paparazzi flashes lit up the Atlanta sky like lightning. The red carpet stretched in front of her like a victory lap she had earned through fire. She moved slowly, every step deliberate, calm, certain. She wore a silver gown that shimmered under the lights, simple but royal. A message to everyone watching. She wasn't coming back for revenge. She was coming back to reign. When the reporters called out questions, "Did you watch Jasmine's last interview? Have you spoken to Kirk?" She smiled faintly and said, "You'll see everything you need to see tonight." Inside, the energy was electric. Industry faces filled the rows, executives, influencers, producers. Everyone wanted to witness how Rasheeda would reclaim the story that had nearly destroyed her. The screen flickered to life. Soft piano music played, and her voice filled the room. "They thought they could tell my story for me," she said. "They were wrong." The crowd erupted into applause before the first scene even finished. The documentary wasn't revenge, porn, it was restraint, reflection, and revelation wrapped into one. She didn't name Jasmine or Kirk directly, but every sentence carried a pulse of truth that everyone could feel. She talked about years of compromise, the loneliness of success, the pain of loving someone who kept secrets. She said, "People think power is about control, but real power is walking away from the things that keep you small." By the end, the audience stood to their feet. Some clapped, some cried, and everyone knew Rasheeda had turned her pain into currency. But outside, in the cool night air, another storm was forming. Kirk watched the premiere from home on his couch, a glass of whiskey untouched beside him. Every time her voice came through the speakers, his chest tightened. She was telling the truth, and he knew it. But what hurt most wasn't the exposure, it was realizing how much she'd outgrown him. For the first time, he understood that the empire he'd built wasn't his anymore. It was hers. The phone rang, but he didn't answer. It was probably another journalist. Or worse, Jasmine. He wasn't ready to face either of them. Jasmine, meanwhile, was in Los Angeles, miles away from Atlanta but not far enough from the echo of her own choices. Her book had been delayed indefinitely, her podcast sponsors had pulled out, and the spotlight that once adored her now burned. She scrolled through social media, watching clips from the premiere. Every comment cut deeper. Rasheeda, 1. This is how you handle betrayal with grace. Jasmine thought she could outsmart everyone. She threw her phone across the room, but it didn't make her feel better. Silence swallowed her whole. Days passed before Jasmine resurfaced. She posted a single photo of herself by the ocean. No caption, just a quiet stare toward the horizon. The internet immediately erupted with speculation. Some said she was working on a rebrand. Others believed she was done for good. Then, 3 days later, she uploaded a video titled My Truth. It wasn't polished like her previous ones. No makeup, no lighting, no script. Just her and a raw, trembling honesty no one had seen before. I didn't set out to ruin anyone, she began. I was angry, and I wanted control over something for once, but in trying to prove I wasn't the victim, I became the villain. Her voice cracked halfway through, but she didn't stop. Kirk lied to me. Rasheeda deserved better. And I deserved to start over. Within hours, the video went viral not as scandal, but as redemption. People began calling it the apology that changed everything. Even Rasheeda watched it in silence, her expression unreadable. When a producer asked how she felt, she said softly, she finally told the truth. That's all anyone ever wanted. For a brief moment, peace seemed possible. Kirk, Rasheeda, and Jasmine drifted into separate worlds, each nursing the wounds that fame could never heal. Kirk opened a new studio, smaller but authentic. He started mentoring young artists again, this time focusing on transparency and fairness, something he'd never valued before. Rasheeda expanded her business empire, launching a mentorship program for women in entertainment. And Jasmine disappeared again, this time by choice. But peace never lasts long in this world. 3 months later, a leak hit the internet. An anonymous source dropped unseen footage from the original Netflix project, the one that started it all. The clips showed tense behind-the-scenes arguments, secret meetings, and one shocking moment where Kirk off camera admitted he had reworked contracts to cut Jasmine out of profit shares. The internet ignited overnight. Hashtags exploded again. So he lied. Justice for Jasmine. Rasheeda knew. The balance shifted. Suddenly, Jasmine was the sympathetic one, and Kirk was once again the villain. Netflix issued a statement denying involvement in the leak, but insiders whispered that it came from within. The theory was that someone from production had sold the footage to reignite interest, and it worked. Streaming numbers spiked, but for Kirk it was ruinous. Brands that had cautiously returned now fled again. Even his artists began distancing themselves. One, a young rapper he'd mentored, tweeted, "Sometimes your idols ain't who you think they are." The betrayal stung worse than the headlines. Rasheeda stayed silent, but privately, she was furious. The leak threatened everything she'd rebuilt. The media started twisting it. Did Rasheeda protect Kirk's secrets? Was she complicit? The noise grew louder until it became impossible to ignore. One night, she called Kirk for the first time in months. "You need to fix this," she said coldly. "I can't keep cleaning up after your mistakes." He tried to explain, but she cut him off. "This isn't about us anymore. This is about reputation. And right now, you're pulling me down with you." The next morning, Kirk released another video. This one wasn't polished either. His voice was tired, heavy, stripped of pride. "The footage is real," he said. "I was wrong. I tried to protect myself and ended up hurting everyone around me. I can't undo what's been done, but I can stop pretending." It was a rare moment of humility. Even some of his harshest critics admitted it took courage. Jasmine, watching from afar, said quietly to a friend, "He finally told the truth too." That moment, small and quiet, became a strange turning point. For the first time in years, there was no manipulation left, no carefully crafted story to hide behind. It was just 3 people facing the aftermath of their choices. Still, the world wasn't ready to let them move on. Tabloids continued spinning, theories, secret reunions, ghost projects, hidden deals. Some claimed Jasmine and Kirk were meeting again secretly. Others said Rasheeda had signed a multi-million-dollar sequel deal with Hulu. Every rumor fed the machine, and the machine kept running. Behind the noise, Jasmine began writing again, not a tell-all, but a screenplay. She titled it In Plain Sight. It wasn't about them exactly, but anyone who knew the real story could see the parallels. It was about 3 people trapped in the illusion of success, chasing validation until it consumed them. When she finished, she sent it to one person only, Rasheeda. No message, no explanation, just the script. Days passed before she heard back. Then a short reply came. It's beautiful, let's make it. And that's how the unthinkable happened. Months later, cameras rolled again, this time not for a scandal, but for a collaboration. Jasmine and Rasheeda, once enemies, now creative partners, working together to turn their shared pain into art. Kirk wasn't part of it, but he sent flowers to the set on the first day of filming. The card read, "Thank you for finishing what I couldn't." The project, kept secret for months, was finally announced under a small independent studio. The internet went into shock. Rasheeda and Jasmine together. Is this real? What about Kirk? It became the most anticipated release of the year. And when it finally dropped, critics called it haunting, raw, and redemptive. It wasn't gossip anymore, it was legacy. The final scene of the film mirrored reality. 2 women standing on opposite sides of a stage. The lights fading, the audience silent. One says, "We lost everything," and the other replies, "No, we just found the truth." The screen went black, and the words appeared, based on what could have been. When the credits rolled, viewers didn't argue or gossip. They just sat in silence, absorbing the strange beauty of it all. Even Kirk, watching from home, felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. The story that had destroyed them had also freed them. It was over, but as always, endings are never final in this world. The day after the premiere, a new rumor began to spread online. An anonymous post claimed that the original Netflix footage, the full unedited version, was still out there. And this time, it contained something none of them had seen before. The post ended with one chilling line, "The real story starts now." The internet roared back to life. The cycle began again. And somewhere, in the quiet spaces between truth and illusion, Jasmine looked up from her phone, smiled faintly, and whispered, "Let them watch." The fallout only grew worse as the days passed. Every hour brought a new headline, every post a new theory. Kirk's name was everywhere: magazines, talk shows, gossip podcasts. Even political blogs weighed in on the Frost scandal as a metaphor for betrayal and fame. Netflix tried to stay quiet, but silence only fueled speculation. Their executives found themselves dragged into online spaces they'd never heard of before, accused of manipulating Black reality stars for clout. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Jasmine was thriving. Her followers tripled overnight. She had agents calling, offers lining up, her face trending with the caption, "The woman who outplayed Atlanta." One night, Jasmine went live, sitting in a dimly lit room with a glass of wine. "Everyone wants to know if I betrayed Kirk and Rasheeda," she said, voice calm but sharp. "The truth. I just told my story. The problem is, people only like truth when it flatters them." Her live hit 500,000 viewers in minutes. She laughed once, a low, practiced sound. "But let me be clear, I didn't beg for this spotlight. They did." The comments exploded. Some called her brave, others called her delusional, but everyone watched till the end. Kirk saw the clip while scrolling through his phone, his face twisted with disbelief. "She's turning this into a performance," he muttered, pacing the room. "She's making me the villain." His manager warned him to keep quiet, but Kirk couldn't help himself. That night, he posted a short video of his own, just him in his studio. No background music, no edits. "Y'all think you know everything," he said, "but there's always more to the story." Within hours, it was dissected, remixed, and turned into meme. One tweet read, "Kirk out here acting like he's in a Netflix thriller instead of being the plot." Meanwhile, Rasheeda finally broke her silence. She appeared on an interview show, dressed in white, eyes puffy but composed. "I'm not here to bash anyone," she began softly. "I just need peace. I don't know what's true anymore. I just know I can't live like this." The interviewer leaned forward. "Did you know Jasmine was involved in the Netflix deal?" Rasheeda hesitated, her silence more powerful than any answer. "I know now," she said finally. "And that's enough." It became the most replayed clip of the week. Fans flooded the internet with sympathy, editing her words into emotional montages with slow music and quotes about betrayal. But not everyone bought the victim narrative. A popular gossip blogger named Keon posted a thread claiming Rasheeda had her own secrets. "She playing chess too," he wrote. "Don't let the tears fool you." Screenshots followed text messages allegedly between Rasheeda and a Netflix consultant, discussing creative leverage. If true, it meant Rasheeda might have been using the scandal to negotiate her own deal all along. The internet went wild again. Team Jasmine celebrated. Team Rasheeda doubled down. Kirk, caught between both sides, became the most hated man in Atlanta for a crime no one could even define clearly. One evening, Kirk showed up unannounced at Rasheeda's new apartment. She opened the door halfway, cautious. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "Please, just listen," Kirk pleaded. "It's not what it looks like. That's what you always say." "I didn't know Jasmine would leak all that." She twisted it. Rasheeda crossed her arms. "And you gave her the chance to." Her voice cracked slightly, then steadied again. "You brought her into our lives. Now we all pay for it." Kirk looked down, ashamed. "I just wanted one win. One deal that wasn't about our past. And instead," she said quietly, "you sold it." He tried to speak again, but she closed the door. The sound of the latch echoed like an ending. Still, it wasn't over. The next morning, Jasmine's documentary trailer officially dropped online. It featured unseen footage, voiceovers from anonymous sources, and a haunting closing line. "The truth doesn't destroy people, it reveals them." Netflix didn't confirm or deny involvement, which only made things worse. Fans assumed it was real. Bloggers called it a cultural bomb. Kirk's phone lit up again, messages from lawyers, producers, even his own family asking if it was true. "They can't air that," his brother said over the phone. "You'll be finished." But Kirk wasn't sure what finished meant anymore. Fame, love, legacy, it had all become one messy tangle. Later that night, a storm rolled through Atlanta. Thunder cracked outside as Kirk sat by the window, watching the rain blur the city lights. His reflection stared back, hollow. Then his phone buzzed. A message from Jasmine. "You could have worked with me," it read. "Now you'll watch from the sidelines." He deleted it without replying, but the words lingered in his mind. Days passed, then weeks. The scandal didn't fade, it evolved. Suddenly there were think pieces about gender, power, exploitation. Academics were quoting the Frost situation in university lectures. A Netflix insider even suggested the company might greenlight a follow-up series focusing on media truth and manipulation. Kirk knew what that meant. They were going to milk his pain for content. He decided to fight back. Hiring a crisis PR team, he planned to release his own version of tell-all special titled The Frost Redemption. He wanted Rasheeda on board, but she refused every offer. "I'm done performing pain," she said curtly over the phone. "You should try it." Jasmine, meanwhile, was rumored to have signed a book deal. Advance payment, 6 figures. The title leaked online through the fire. My Story, Their Lies. The irony was lost on no one. Kirk's camp leaked its own bombshells and response photos, emails, timelines designed to prove Jasmine manipulated everything from the start. But for every receipt he dropped, Jasmine countered with something sharper, something that made him look worse. One night, she released a private voice memo of Kirk saying, "As long as we keep the cameras rolling, the Frost name stays alive." That single sentence broke him. Fans took it as proof that everything, even their marriage, had been a performance. The next morning, Kirk trended again for all the wrong reasons. His manager advised him to disappear for a while, but Kirk couldn't. He still believed he could reclaim the narrative, so, against every warning, he showed up to Jasmine's public book launch. The cameras caught everything: the tension, the stares, the fake smiles. "You really came," Jasmine said, her tone mocking but polite. "I had to see it for myself," Kirk replied. "The empire you built on lies." She smiled faintly. "You taught me well." Photographers flashed, capturing the moment. That image, Kirk and Jasmine, standing inches apart. History in their eyes became the cover photo for every entertainment site. Later, Kirk sat in his car outside the event, scrolling through the photos, realizing she'd won again. But something inside him had shifted. He wasn't angry anymore, just tired, exhausted by years of pretending, fighting, spinning stories. He whispered to himself, maybe this is the real show. Back at her hotel, Jasmine poured herself another drink. She'd seen the same photos and smiled knowingly. "Let them talk," she murmured. "Talking keeps me alive." But even she didn't know what was coming next. That same night, an anonymous email reached multiple media outlets with the subject line, "Final Truth." Attached were audio files and documents that painted an entirely new picture. One suggesting the Netflix deal wasn't about Kirk or Jasmine at all. It had been a setup from the beginning, orchestrated by producers who'd used both of them as pawns to launch a franchise exploring infidelity and fame. If that was true, then everyone, Kirk, Rasheeda, Jasmine, had been manipulated. Within hours, chaos erupted again. Bloggers scrambled to confirm sources. Fans demanded justice. Netflix issued a vague statement promising transparency moving forward. Jasmine stayed silent this time. Kirk didn't post. Rasheeda, however, shared one single line on her story: "You can't sell your soul and expect peace." And with that, the entire saga shifted tone. What started as a scandal had become something heavier. Warning. Maybe, about what happens when entertainment becomes indistinguishable from real life. Still, deep down, everyone knew the story wasn't truly over. Too much money, too much ego, too many secrets remained. And as the lights dimmed on one chapter, Hollywood's producers were already planning the next. Weeks passed, but the city never stopped talking. Atlanta had become a living echo of the Frost scandal. Every cafe conversation circled back to Kirk's downfall, Jasmine's ambition, or Rasheeda's silence. Radio hosts debated loyalty versus legacy, while talk shows replayed the same clips, dissecting every tone and gesture. Kirk had tried to disappear, spending long days at the studio that once felt like his escape. Now just an empty space filled with ghosts of old songs. He'd sit there with the lights low, headphones around his neck, but no music ever played. The silence mocked him. His phone buzzed constantly with offers to tell his side. Networks. Wanted exclusives. Streaming platforms pitched docu. But Kirk said no to all of them until one message came through that changed everything. "Rasheeda's ready to talk," it read. From her lawyer. That single sentence pulled him out of the fog. 2 days later, they met at a quiet restaurant in Midtown. No cameras, no entourage. She wore sunglasses indoors, but her composure was unmistakable. Kirk hesitated before speaking. "You look good." She didn't respond. "I didn't come here for small talk," she said finally. "Then why did you?" he asked. She leaned forward. "Because I'm tired of strangers telling our story." For a moment, Kirk almost smiled. It was the first time in months they'd agreed on anything. "So what are you saying?" he asked carefully. Rasheeda took off her glasses, her eyes sharp. "I'm saying we finish this on our terms. No Netflix. No Jasmine. No producers. Just us." Kirk blinked, unsure if he'd heard right. "You want to film it?" "No," she said. "I want to own it." It took him a second to understand. She wasn't proposing another show. She wanted to control the truth itself. By that evening, they were sitting in her home office, drafting what they called the Frost Manifesto. It wasn't a documentary or a show, it was a raw, unscripted statement meant to reclaim their story. Rasheeda planned to drop it on her channel, unfiltered. Kirk agreed, but deep down, he knew this wasn't just about honesty. It was about redemption. When word leaked that the Frosts were working on something together, the internet went feral. Reunion, forgiveness, or another trap? Jasmine, watching from her condo balcony, laughed bitterly at the news. She opened her laptop and began typing. The headline read, "The Frosts are back, but so are the receipts." By morning, a new wave of leaks hit social media. Unseen photos, texts, audio clips, some too personal, some too suspiciously edited. It was clear Jasmine had been saving ammunition. Kirk slammed his phone on the table. "She's not done," he growled. "She never is," Rasheeda replied calmly. "But let her talk. The truth outlives noise." Still, as they began recording their joint statement, Kirk couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. Cameras were always somewhere, even when they weren't visible. The first take began awkwardly. Kirk spoke too fast. Rasheeda too slow. They argued mid-sentence, then started over. By the fifth attempt, something shifted. There were no lines, no rehearsed emotion, just two people facing what fame had done to them. "We lost ourselves trying to control the narrative," Rasheeda said quietly. "And maybe the lesson is, we never really could." Kirk nodded, voice low. "We turned real pain into episodes. And maybe that's on both of us." When they finished, the room was silent. No applause, no crew, just air heavy with relief. They uploaded the video that night, without announcement. No hashtags, no captions, just the title, "The Truth We Owe." Within an hour, it had 1 million views. Fans flooded the comments. "This is real." Finally, you can feel the pain in their voices. But not everyone believed it. Some claimed it was damage control, a staged comeback. One viral post read, "They turned healing into content." Jasmine quoted it on her page, adding a single line, "Told you it's all performance." The feud reignited, but this time, the public wasn't as easily swayed. People were beginning to see the cycle for what it was, a loop of scandal feeding on itself. Yet Jasmine couldn't stop. She scheduled a live interview, teasing it as the real finale. Kirk's team begged him not to respond, but Rasheeda said something that caught him off guard. "Let her have the last word," she said. Peace isn't won by shouting. It took everything in him to agree. The night of Jasmine's interview, social media went dark and electric. Millions tuned in. She walked onto the set wearing white, mirroring Rasheeda's earlier look, as if mocking her. I've been painted the villain, Jasmine began, her voice smooth. But villains only exist in stories where someone needs to be saved. The host leaned in. So who's the victim here? Jasmine smiled. The truth? The audience gasped. And for a moment, even her critics couldn't look away. She talked about betrayal, manipulation, survival, about how women in entertainment are used and discarded. Her performance was flawless. By the end, she was trending again. But for the first time, not everyone was entertained. The tone online shifted from gossip to exhaustion. One comment captured it best. We've watched them destroy each other for clicks. Maybe we're the problem. Kirk read that line over and over. He shut off his phone and sat in silence, realizing the spectacle had eaten everything it touched. A few days later, he visited Rasheeda again. They didn't talk much, just sat on the porch watching the sunset. You think it's finally over? He asked. No, she said softly, but maybe it doesn't matter anymore. A car passed by, blaring a song they'd recorded years ago. For the first time in months, Kirk smiled faintly. We made good music once. Rasheeda looked at him, her voice almost tender. We made memories too, not all of them bad. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something close. Across town, Jasmine stood in her dressing room, staring at her reflection. The glow of the mirror lights softened her features, but her eyes looked tired. Her assistant entered, holding a phone. Netflix called, she said. They want a sequel. Jasmine stared for a long moment, then whispered, of course they do. She dismissed her assistant, sat alone, and turned off the lights. In the quiet, her phone buzzed again this time, a message from an unknown number. It read, the story isn't over until we stop telling it. She didn't reply, just set the phone down and closed. Her eyes. Somewhere out there, Kirk and Rasheeda were trying to rebuild, trying to remember life before all of this. Jasmine, alone in the dark, was realizing something no camera had ever caught, that fame without peace was just another kind of prison. And while the world still speculated, debated, and refreshed their feeds for updates, the three of them finally understood the same truth. The show might go on, but not every story deserves another season. Months passed, but the chaos never fully dissipated. Atlanta had become a constant echo chamber of speculation. Fans dissected every photo, every interview, every social media post, searching for clues. Kirk tried to retreat into his music, but even in the studio, the ghosts of past headlines haunted him. Every beat, every verse seemed shadowed by the scandal that refused to fade. He tried writing songs about truth, redemption, regret, but none of them captured what had been lost. Rasheeda, on the other hand, had rebuilt herself into a brand untouchable by rumor. Her business ventures flourished, her mentorship programs expanded, and she spoke publicly only when it served her narrative of empowerment. She had mastered the art of silence. Jasmine, meanwhile, became a master of timing. She released sporadic interviews, cryptic posts, and occasional videos, each carefully calculated to reignite public interest without losing control. Her followers hung on every word, every gesture. One night, Kirk received an unexpected message, a single line that made his blood run cold. It read, "We see everything." No signature, no explanation. He stared at it for hours, wondering if it was a hacker, a producer, or Jasmine herself. Anxiety gnawed at him, but he knew he couldn't ignore it. Rasheeda called later that evening. "You've seen it?" she asked, voice low. Kirk hesitated. "Yes. I don't know who it's from." She sighed. "Doesn't matter. It's a warning. Someone wants the story alive." The following day, tabloids exploded with the Frost Files. Mystery sender threatens new scandal. Speculation ran wild. Some claimed it was an insider at Netflix. Others said it was a former producer seeking revenge. Social media threads grew to thousands of comments, theories bouncing from one extreme to another. Kirk became a target again, but he realized that fear no longer ruled him. He began piecing together who might have access to their private communications, who would benefit from chaos. While he investigated, Rasheeda quietly strengthened her digital presence, preparing for any potential fallout. She wanted to ensure that if new leaks surfaced, her story remained intact. Jasmine, observing from afar, didn't panic. She had anticipated every move, every reaction. She knew the power of control, and she wielded it silently. Then, the leak came. A series of documents, photos, and audio clips appeared online in a coordinated drop. The files suggested manipulations, secret deals, and alliances no one had known existed. Fans were furious. Celebrities weighed in, and the media declared it the scandal of the decade. Kirk's team scrambled, but he refused to issue statements. Rasheeda held a private meeting with her advisors, deciding which elements to address publicly and which to let fade. Jasmine, watching, only smiled faintly. Recognizing that every reaction fueled engagement, every panic added to her influence. The trio now existed in a triangle of calculated moves, each aware that perception mattered more than reality. Amidst all the noise, the story had evolved. It wasn't just about betrayal, secrets, or deals anymore. It had become a commentary on fame itself, on how public figures are trapped by their own narratives. Each new leak, each public appearance, reinforced that the world was always watching, waiting for drama, but seldom understanding the people behind it. And so, Kirk, Rasheeda, and Jasmine navigated this maze, each step measured, each silence strategic, knowing that in a world addicted to spectacle, even peace could be a performance. The cycle would continue, but for the first time, all three understood. The story didn't control them, they controlled their story. All right, now it's time to speak directly to you. The one who's been following every twist, every secret, every betrayal, every shocking reveal. If you've made it this far, then you already know how twisted, unpredictable, and utterly captivating this saga has been. Kirk, Rasheeda, Jasmine, they've lived out a storm that feels larger than life. But here's the thing, their story isn't just about celebrities, contracts, or deals. It's about trust, power, and choices. It's about what happens when ambition collides with loyalty, when secrets are hidden in plain sight, and when the people you think you know turn out to be entirely different from the versions you've been shown. Now, it's your turn to weigh in. What do you think happened behind the closed doors that no camera ever captured? Who do you believe truly had the upper hand in this drama? And who, if anyone, deserves the ultimate redemption? Your opinion matters here because this story thrives on perspective. Every like, every comment, every share fuels the conversation. And honestly, you're part of the story too. Maybe you've been shouting at your screen, typing furiously in the comments, trying to connect the dots or defend your favorite. Maybe you've been silently judging, wondering how anyone could make such mistakes, or feeling the tension as if it were your own family feud unfolding on screen. This is your chance to be heard. Click that like button if you were shocked by the twists, if Rasheeda's calm composure surprised you, if Kirk's mistakes made you cringe, or if Jasmine's strategic maneuvers had you glued to every word. Share this video with friends who love reality, who thrive on drama, or who just need to see how intense life can get when fame, trust, and betrayal intersect in the most explosive ways imaginable. And here's the most important part, leave a comment below. Tell us what you think. Who do you side with? Do you believe the final truths revealed were enough? Did someone get away with manipulation? Or did justice, in some strange way, find its place? Your comments don't just stay in the digital void, they guide the conversation, spark debates, and sometimes, they even influence what we cover next. Subscribe to the channel to stay on top of every shocking update, every new revelation, every twist that emerges from this tangled web. Trust me, in the world of celebrity drama, nothing stays buried for long, and the next bombshell is always just around the corner. Subscribing ensures that you're not just a spectator but a participant in uncovering the truth behind the headlines. We'll bring you exclusive commentary, breakdowns of every leaked clip, analysis of every reaction, and the inside scoop that other channels won't dare to touch. Hit the bell icon too, because when the next part of this story breaks and you'll be among the first to see it. Think about this. You've seen the story unfold from beginning to end, but the world is full of angles you haven't considered, secrets that haven't yet surfaced, and alliances that may change everything overnight. By engaging with this video, by liking, commenting, and sharing, you're helping shape the narrative, helping others understand the depth of this drama, and maybe even helping yourself process the wild chaos of fame and betrayal. The choices of Kirk, Rasheeda, and Jasmine may have been their own, but your reactions, your voices, and your perspectives matter just as much in the ongoing discussion. So, take a moment, scroll down, hit like if your jaw dropped at any point, comment if you feel strongly about who should come out on top, who deserves forgiveness, or who should never be trusted again. Share this with friends who need to see the reality behind the Netflix deals, the secret plots, and the family betrayals. And most importantly, subscribe, because this channel is committed to following every shocking development, every twist in the story, every revelation that no one else will cover with this level of detail. Stay part of this drama, Stay part of this conversation, and make sure your voice is heard as the saga continues to unfold. This isn't just a video, it's a chance to witness, participate, and react to one of the most sensationalized, dramatic, and shocking celebrity stories of our time. Kirk, Rasheeda, and Jasmine's world is messy, chaotic, and unpredictable, but now it's your world too. Don't miss a second. Engage, subscribe, comment, and be part of the story because the next chapter is coming. And trust me, you'll want to be ready to see it first.